Shifting consciousness, universal human suffering and the anchor of the mind. Everyone, at least once in life, asks what life truly is. Yet the answers vary from person to person. Some call life a blessing, while others describe it as something to be endured. When we look closely at the lives of great literary figures, we clearly see how much confusion and suffering the human mind is destined to bear. Leo Tolstoy devoted his life to faith, morality, and peace, yet he met his end in a bleak rural train station during a harsh winter. Fyodor Dostoevsky, after years of hard labor and imprisonment in Siberia, gained profound insight into the boundaries between good and evil, reason and madness. Yet he lived his entire life burdened by epilepsy, the death of his children, gambling addiction, and poverty. Ernest Hemingway suffered from severe depression that ran in his family, and in the end, his father, two of his brothers, and he himself all chose death. Stefan Zweig, the author of The World of Yesterday, fell into despair before the collapse of human values brought about by 2 world wars, and ended his life with his wife in Brazil. These figures were geniuses produced by humanity, yet they also experienced, more intensely than most, the deep turmoil inherent in the human condition. Their lives reveal that not only extraordinary individuals, but ordinary people as well, live within similar inner dramas. From the moment we open our eyes in the morning, our consciousness is exposed to a relentless assault of thoughts. Trivial memories, anxiety, regret, comparison, self-blame, and vague fears rise to the surface of awareness. Even the smallest visual scene or faintest sound can unsettle the mind. Anxiety about unfinished tasks, subtle discomfort in relationships, physical pain from aging and illness. The pressure of social competition and survival, and even the noise from the apartment upstairs, these elements together compose our daily lives. Seen this way, human existence is less a state of calm than a continuous stream of stimulation and tension. Yet people rarely reveal their inner turmoil to others. They smile, pretend they are fine, and act as if they are living well. More intriguingly, they deceive not only others, but themselves. They suppress their confusion and anxiety, repeatedly telling themselves that nothing is wrong. If the human mind were as transparent as a tropical fish tank, we would see countless dissonances, collisions, and sparks of conflict constantly flashing within. Modern brain imaging technologies indeed show that we live amid far more emotional tension and subtle stress than we realize. Such inner turmoil does not disappear through suppression. Pushing an air-filled ball underwater may keep it submerged for a moment, but it inevitably resurfaces. As in the biblical metaphor, even if one demon is cast out and the house is swept clean, if it remains empty, many more return. The human mind works the same way. The more we repress and deny anxiety and intrusive thoughts, the more powerfully they come back. Where, then, does this universal human suffering originate? Modern psychology and neuroscience tell us that human consciousness is a system primarily designed for survival. Our brains evolved to detect threats, predict danger, and imagine worst-case scenarios. While this was advantageous for survival, in modern society it often manifests as excessive vigilance and chronic anxiety. In addition, recent research in genetics and epigenetics suggests that extreme stress and trauma experienced by our ancestors can be transmitted to descendants through changes in gene expression. This may partly explain why we experience inexplicable anxiety, irrational fears, and recurring intrusive thoughts. We are not beings who live only our own individual lives. We carry, unconsciously, the traces of countless generations of survival, fear, loss, hope, and despair. The strange images in our dreams, the sudden waves of emotion, and the destructive thoughts that arise without warning may be remnants of humanity's collective memory. From this perspective, human confusion is not the result of personal weakness, but an inevitable outcome of a consciousness forced to contain an overwhelming accumulation of experience. For a mind that is constantly shaken, some form of anchorage is necessary, just as a ship needs an anchor to avoid being swept away by waves. That harbor differs for each person. For some, it is faith; for others, philosophy, art, nature, responsibility, love, service, or even simple daily routines. What matters is discovering a central axis that can hold one's existence steady. The Buddhist and Taoist ideals of no thought, no form, and no self represent attempts to dissolve this turmoil at its root, but in the reality of everyday life, maintaining such states is extraordinarily difficult. The gravitational forces of survival, relationships, and responsibility continuously reconstruct the self. Biology offers yet another insight. The cells of our bodies sometimes choose self-destruction for the sake of the whole organism, a process known as apoptosis. This is essential for life to continue. Yet there is no scientific evidence that physical self-destruction brings peace to the mind. On the contrary, most studies show that extreme choices do not end suffering, but rather transfer and expand it onto others. Pain does not vanish, it merely changes form. Ultimately, human suffering is not something to be eliminated, but something to be understood. When we comprehend why we are so easily shaken, why trivial events disturb us, and why anxiety arises without clear cause, we no longer interpret our distress as a personal flaw. Human consciousness is an imperfect system designed for survival, and at the same time, a vast reservoir containing the memories of thousands of generations. Upon this understanding, each person must lower their own anchor, whether it be faith, contemplation, or the rhythm of everyday life. What matters is not external standards, but finding the point where one's inner world truly feels stable. The firmer the anchor, the less threatening the waves of life become, turning them instead into part of the voyage. In the end, human life cannot aim for perfect tranquility. Yet by understanding confusion and discovering a personal center within it, suffering can transform from a destructive force into a source of maturity. We think because we are shaken, we grow because we think, and through growth we encounter new forms of confusion. Within this endless cycle, humans continually reconstruct themselves. Perhaps this is the deepest destiny and trial that comes with being human.